Why am I doing this? Well, I'm creating what's called one-point perspective. Okay, let's do a live demo of gestures in action. So instead of using my iPad, I'm going to just go ahead and sketch directly onto a sheet of paper. The paper I'm using is I think it's a 2-ply Bristol. This one is by Eon Artboards. It's really good quality paper. I really recommend it. If you can find it near you, or you can just go to their website. But yeah, Eon Artboards, really good quality. Let's just get started. So I haven't thought about what I'm going to draw, but I haven't sketched today, so I haven't done any warm-ups or anything. So this is just me, just point blank, starting from nothing. So here we go. Typically when I'm doing stuff like this, I'll start with some warm-up sketches, but for the sake of demonstration, I will just try to dive right in. I wish I could hear you guys and you could give me some ideas on who to draw. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start out with a darker lead and just kind of work my way to a lighter lead. So this should pick up a little bit better on screen. Okay, let's see. Who do I want to draw? Let's see. Sometimes I just move my hand around until I get some sort of feeling. Now, typically if you're sketching and you're doing work professionally, or if you're doing a commission, you'll want to do some thumbnails. You'll want to have an idea of who you're drawing. So if someone says, "Hey, draw, Wolverine fighting the Hulk," well, you'll want to have some reference. You'll want to do some drafts and stuff like that, and get everything together. But for the sake of this, let's see. I always draw Wolverine, so I'm going to try and avoid drawing Wolverine. I will try to draw. Sometimes I just start out with a head. So since I have this leg coming forward, I want to pull this arm back. Just gives it more balance. So let's see. And we'll put this arm forward. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of pulling myself back and just seeing, where is this going? Is this something that's worth executing on, or should I start over and try something new? Right now, there's some energy in this, and that's the key, honestly. This is why I chose to teach gestures in the first place, is I've just seen too much, like I'm talking way too much, stiff art, stiff poses. It's too many. It's just, and what's happening is it's discouraging for the artist. So if you spend a lot of time sketching, and then all you come up with is a stiff character at the end, well, it might be really well polished, and the anatomy might look great, but if it's stiff and lifeless, it's just not going to be satisfying. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is just kind of find some proportions. All right, so we have this shoulder leaning forward, this shoulder pulling back, collarbone. I'm not even too focused on anatomy right now, but I do want to kind of pencil it in there. This leg coming forward, this leg coming back. Who could this be? I have no idea yet. So another thing about gestures is hands are a form of expression. So hands can also fall into the category of gestures. So like an open hand, like this, it kind of represents a certain readiness, like, ready to grab, ready to grasp. A clenched fist shows more tension. Okay. Relaxed fingers show, relaxation, comfort, yada, yada. Okay, here we go. There's a basic, very, very basic gesture. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit lost in the sketch here, trying to figure out what I can do and who I can turn this into. Actually, I have an idea. Instead of having this character looking at the camera, I'm going to have them looking back. I'm going to try. Have them looking back this way. And you do this, any type of head movement, it also changes the language of the art. It changes the expression, it changes the meaning. So if we turn the character's head this way, well, he's no longer engaging with us, and he's engaging with another character, which, or maybe not even a character, could be any object. But the fact that the head is turning is making us subconsciously, as a observer, wonder what's going on over here, right? Just a twist of the head can do that. Okay, so I'm just going to keep playing around here until I figure something out. Now, I might scrap this all together, but I'm trying not to. I'm trying to do this all in one shot. I still don't know who I'm drawing. It's dangerous territory, especially when you're recording. Let's see. If his head is here, halfway point, eyes would fall somewhere around here. Nose, mouth. Okay. I have an idea. Let's see if it works. Now I'm just going to take a kneaded eraser like this. This one's not great. And when I say not great, I just mean it's a little old. So it might create residue. And that the whole purpose of a gum eraser or a kneaded eraser is to avoid having a lot of residue on your art. What I mean by residue is just like leftover graphite, leftover lead. See that? These little marks here? It gets really dirty. So it's important to change these kneaded erasers quite often. Okay, so we have something. Now I'm not using any reference, no character reference, no nothing. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a number 2 pencil, and I'm just going to kind of rehash this, try to find some shapes and proportions that I think might work for this layout, and try to keep that element of, kind of like surprise. He's looking back. Who can it be? So we have this neck muscle that goes straight to the center of the sternum here, right back to the back of his neck. And then I'm having his neck twist this way, so I'm kind of leaning the character's head a little bit further towards his right shoulder. Now from here, I'm just going to start creating a little bit of anatomy just for me. And by no means am I sticking with this anatomy. I will come back and tighten it up later. Just trying to get my bearings straight, see what I can do with this sketch. So we know that he had this hand outstretched here. And we have this arm outstretched here. And then his body is kind of turning. So we have this, if we were to do the line of action, it would be somewhere along these lines. And try and drop in this leg a little bit lower. And pull this leg higher. So looking at the body type, the options I'm coming up with are slender characters like either Spider-Man, Daredevil, Flash, someone who's got kind of a agile body, very slender, very contortionist. Okay. Since I'm trying to do this relatively fast, I'm just going to go ahead and make him into a spider character, Spider-Man. So to do so, I'm just going to go ahead and find a center point on his face. Imagine that his eyes are here underneath the mask. And then I'm just going to draw in a shape of his eye. Now this is always subject to change. Keep in mind, all this stuff is done loosely because there's always the possibility that, everything could change in a blink of an eye. I might decide that, hey, this is going to turn into Superman, and just add more bulk to the character. Okay, so we have that. Now I'm just trying to correct a little bit of the anatomy before I dive in. And when I say dive in, all I mean is commit. Before I commit to my lines, Right now it's very scratchy, very sketchy. You know, we all have those sketchy friends that we're not sure about. And that's what this art is. Okay. Now this waist is getting a little too narrow for me, so I'm going to have to alter it some. Okay. Now, the question is, who's coming behind him? Maybe we can add another character, or at least partial character, right? And then we'll add the little Spidey emblem here. This is just for our reference. So, how's that camera? It's kind of a weird angle. It's close enough. I wanted to position the camera where it's like you're looking over my shoulder. Okay. So at this stage, you see that my pencil is constantly moving. And the reason for that is I'm sculpting. I'm just trying to, I'm not even trying to do anything. I'm allowing my hand to kind of guide me based on the anatomy that I've learned. I'm allowing my hand to kind of just make adjustments. And I know it sounds weird to say that, but honestly, a lot of this stuff is subconscious. Just like when you're driving a car or riding a bike, you're not constantly thinking of every time you pedal the bike or every time you push the gas down. A lot of that stuff happens automatically. Okay. So now, with that said, let's go ahead and draw some sort of character back here. Or maybe not even a character, maybe a hint of a character. So how do we do that? Well, how about a tentacle from Doc Ock? Right? Kind of shows reason to be nervous. And then let's see. I wonder what would happen if I raise this leg up to here. So these are questions you'll be asking yourself as an artist. Like, you'll just kind of wonder how things turn out if you move point A to point B, or you're always experimenting. Now, here's a good time for me to mention what's called the overlap. So since we're kind of looking directly at Spider-Man, it looks like he's jumping or moving, right? But there's something called an overlap. And an overlap is when one line overlaps another to indicate depth. So here's a couple overlaps. The head is overlapping the shoulder, right? This leg is overlapping the whole body. It's foreshortened, meaning that it's coming towards the camera. So it's going to appear larger than normal, but also shorter than normal because it's foreshortened and it's coming prospectively towards the camera. Here, from the shoulder to this arm, we're overlapping and looking. You're not seeing too much of the lower portion of the arm because this upper bicep is overlapping the arm. Likewise over here, the lower part of the arm is overlapping the bicep. So overlapping is just a way of creating more depth and dimension to your art, your characters. Okay, so now I have this. We're 20 minutes in. Not too bad, but I'm usually working a lot faster than this. But it's a little different when you're drawing and talking, because it's harder to get into the flow. Okay, so now what I'm going to do with this, now I'm switching to a darker lead. This is an HB. Now we have options. I have lead holders. I have wooden pencils. I have the lead holder with the infamous tape wrapped around it. We have all that. But this one has just this little thing I bought at the store. It's a little grip support. And I'm just going to take this HB lead, and I'm just going to find some lines that I want to keep. Now, HB stands for hard black, right? So H is hard, B is black. And so it's a combination of a harder lead mixed with a softer black lead. And if you don't know much about pencil leads, the softer it is, the darker it's going to be, and it's also going to be smudgeable. And if it's a harder lead, it's going to be lighter generally, and it's also going to be harder to smudge. Now, lighter leads are great for finishing work, like doing your details, and darker leads are good for doing your shades. And a lot of times I prefer to do a darker lead when I'm laying out a sketch and then erase it and then come back in with a harder lead and doing the fine details. Now we're getting to some anatomy here. I'm going to go ahead, and one of the reasons I draw in emblems is to solidify to my subconscious mind who we're drawing. And it kind of gives a cue, and it allows you to let off the gas and let your mind take over. Okay. So now from here, I'm just going to work over to his shoulder. Shoulder connects to his arm, which would be his bicep first. Got the tricep barely showing because it's in the back. We got the wrist. And then, initially, just want to focus on certain shapes. And then you can come back and fine-tune all the anatomy and erase lines that are not necessary. For the hand, I like to use anchor points. So one anchor point would be the thumb. And then we have this underlying palm that connects to the thumb. So what I would do is just draw a thumb coming out like that. And then from the top of that upper palm, I would connect a finger. And these are my anchor points, right? And what I mean by that is, if you look at your hand, these two fingers are connected. So your thumb and your index finger, and you can build everything off of that. So then from here, I would just kind of copy the same flow, and I'll come back in and clean all this up later. Okay, so now another thing you can do is you can imagine that Spy has this costume design, and it cuts over, goes down, and then comes back up at an angle for his belt line. Same thing over here. And then for his eyes, I'm going to keep them open wide because it kind of shows more surprise. And then we know that we don't see too much of Spider-Man's features underneath the mask, but we know that his nose is going to fall somewhere around here. So one thing you can do is try and keep the balance between these two eyes, but also kind of make it look like there is a human face under there. So his ear would be somewhere around here, so you can hint at an ear. And we'll come back and clean all that stuff too. Now from this, what is this, trap muscle, you have these neck lines and then tension lines. Now I like to bring those into the upper pecs, the chest muscles. And then go ahead and start working on some anatomy back here. Let's go ahead and work a little bit more on this tentacle that I'm not using reference for, but I'm imagining that something like this. And just going to go off page. Oh, you can't even see the tentacle. My bad. There's the tentacle. Surprise. Okay. Yeah, so the way the camera's set, being that this paper is 11 by 17, I'd have to pull the camera back to get the whole page. So I'll have to move this around a little bit. So whatever I'm focusing on, I'll try and remember to put the camera on that so that you can see. Okay, so just to let you know, my desk is now at I would say 45-degree angle almost, approximately. And the reason for that is because sometimes I draw at a flat angle where I'm looking down, but the problem is when you do that, a lot of your work comes out distorted. And the reason for that is because your eye is compensating for all the angles, and you're making sense in your mind with your art. But when you actually turn the page upright and you turn it, you face it to you as a viewer, everything comes out a little bit skewed. So you got to be really careful with that. Okay, so from here, I'm going to drop down to this leg. Now I'm going to keep this leg a little long, and just going to go over to basic shapes. No details yet. And then underneath we have his lower leg, which we're not seeing too much of. And then this one, we're going to raise this leg up. His knee would fall somewhere around here. And then his foot would fall somewhere around here. I'm guessing. So hold on, before I jump into that, let me go ahead and add some musculature here. We can also add some, put like a halo around Spidey, and then from that halo, draw kind of like these lines here. In comics, you know, these are considered like a, what is it, a spidey sense surprise element. Okay, and then if we were getting very ambitious, we could draw a horizon line down here, pick an arbitrary point, like let's say here, and just do some eyeballing for perspective. Now I'm not breaking out my ruler or anything. I'm just roughly bringing all my lines to there. Why am I doing this? Well, I'm creating what's called one-point perspective. And then from there, since I have my horizon line roughly around this area, I'm just going to keep drawing horizontal lines, going straight across. Same thing up here, just do some horizontal lines. Don't worry about drawing through your character because you're erasing all this stuff. And then we can do some vertical lines, just creating kind of a grid. And what this is doing is giving us the power of perspective, right? Giving us the ability, if we choose, to create a background, a scene behind Spidey. So the way I have this set up is, hopefully you can see it, is back here, under here, we could be looking down at rooftops, right? So we can draw on a square here, draw on a square here. Just draw them in randomly. Draw your straight lines down. You can draw a high-rise building here. Up to us. Okay, now let's take everything we're doing and let's kind of tighten it up a little bit. This hand, I feel like, let's see, I want to make it look fairly expressive. As you can see, I'm not worried about, you know, trying to make everything look perfect. A lot of artists, and I say this a lot of aspiring artists, what they tend to do is they go really slow and they try to get everything so perfect. Like they'll just start working on the shade of this arm without even having the whole concept of the arm, you know. I don't worry about stuff like that until later stages because right now we're just trying to find the vision that we're looking for. We're just trying to get everything dialed in so that I can come back and you know, I can just kind of dive in and fix it all up. So this is the layout stage. I could technically stop here and save the rest for another time because what are we, 30 minutes in? I might just do that and then just come back and do another video of, you know, part 2 of just cleaning all this up. So let me go ahead and bring this to the camera. So we start from the top. We have the Doc Ock tentacle. We have Spider-Man looking back, surprised. And he's kind of jumping. And voila. So we just did that without planning for it, just kind of off the top of our heads. And, you know, this is kind of drawing from imagination. But you cannot do this if you don't have the blueprint, the foundation, the understanding of how gestures work, and so don't get ahead of yourself, but at the same time, don't cheat yourself. Don't overthink too much. At this stage, what I would do, just to give you kind of a heads up, I would just start penciling in some anatomy on his legs. Try and keep him as lean as possible. He is Spider-Man after all. And then I would start working on costume elements. I would tighten up these fingers. And I would decide, okay, do I want to do that? Some of the old school comics, and I think maybe today they do this webbing under his arm, which is kind of a cool element. Gives him that kind of wing, the web wings, which I really always, I don't know why, I just thought that was so cool when I first saw it. And whenever I get an opportunity, I try to draw it too. Okay, so with Spider-Man eyes, you can decide, you can do small like that, but that doesn't look expressive to me. So I like to keep them wide for shots like this where we're showing surprise, because wide eyes are symbolic of surprise. And then remind yourself always that in order to create an organic flow to your anatomy, just make sure that everything kind of just connects naturally. You see that this neck connects to the back of the tricep or the trap. That trap connects to the shoulder, and then everything has its place. That shoulder lays over the arm. You see what I'm saying? Just try to keep everything very tight, compact, organic. And then at this stage, I am going to stop now recording, I promise. But at this stage, what I would start doing is just kind of finding where everything falls. The webbing on his costume. I might do research on a tentacle. I don't know. I could probably just create this. It's not that difficult. And you can also give some kind of energy lines showing movement. You could have another one coming up over here. Right? So it's really up to you. Okay, so let's stop here for the sake of time. I may or may not continue this, and if I do, I'll record it, and then I'll show you guys the outcome. But this is enough to show you what how to create a gesture and turn it into a character. Man, I want to keep going. If I were to flip this over, I'm not going to. Dang it, I really want to. Do I have any other art? I did this a few months ago, I think, and this one I created this character. I was kind of thinking like, I think it was right when AI was becoming really popular, and I was just thinking like in the AI art and everything, and I was thinking, Terminator kind of stuff. And so I had this cyborg creature kind of grabbing this businessman by the tie. This one is a Thundercats, who I really love. This all came out of my mind. It wasn't really planned. It just, a lot of times my work starts out as doodles, and I'll just progress whenever I have time, because I have so many things I'm working on. But yeah, that's basically me all the time. If I'm sitting at my drawing desk, I always want to keep my pencil moving. And whatever comes to mind, if I'm feeling really nostalgic, I'll just start drawing, Thundercats or He-Man or Spider-Man or any of my favorite characters. Wolverine is probably the biggest default character for me. You probably have yours too. But yeah, I'm always constantly just doing stuff like this. Just I might say, oh, this could be darker. It might make it pop a little bit more. And oh, I found this little glitch, this little error on his forearm. Let me fix that. Okay, so you guys get the point. To become a better artist, it's going to take execution. Number one, you have to execute. You can't practice without execution. So you have to execute first on practice, understanding the rules, which are, I teach them in my courses: anatomy, gestures, body language, dynamic expressive poses, understanding silhouettes and how they work, understanding character dynamics, attitudes of certain characters. That's why I really fall back onto body language a lot. Like, we could tell with this Spider-Man here, that's his body language. He's jumping, he's surprised. He's a smaller, more compact character, but very agile, right? Whereas you might have someone like Lion-O, who's like kind of big and robust and strong and kind of like a combination of a Wolverine and a Conan and a He-Man, all compiled into one, but you have to pay attention to, body language, character traits that you're trying to capture. And if you're making up your own character, think of their attitude, think of their personalities, try to embellish on those personalities, exaggerate them a little bit, and then try to encapsulate them into art. Try to show certain things that would represent that specific character. Yeah, that's enough for this lecture. Hope you enjoyed it. If I decide to do this one, I will. If I decide to continue on with it, I will record it and I will share it with you. Okay? I'll see you in the next one.